Hello and welcome to This Woman's Work, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing women, the fantastic jobs they do and the paths that have led them to where they are today. So I'm here today with Sally Ann. Hello, Sally Ann.
Hello.
Thank you for doing this.
That's okay. You're very welcome. I'm very excited. It's the first one I've ever done, so I'm very excited about this.
Fab. Okay, so in your own words, did you want to tell our listeners what it is you do for a living?
I am, we like to say, a digital content creator. So essentially, I work with brands, and if they have, it's advertising. I think that really it simplifies it. And I work in advertising, but what I do is I work with brands, so they'll send me things that they would like me to show my audience, and I photograph them or I video them, and then I put them on my feed, on my Instagram feed, and that is it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And I wished it was as simple as I'm making it sound. But yes, that's what I do. So I'm a digital content creator. Sometimes we're called influencers.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind. I guess that in the past the word has had a lot of bad press.
Yeah.
But I don't mind it so much because I'd like to think that the things that I'm showing people are things that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
And I would never show something unless it wasn't really a reflection of me or something that I didn't absolutely love.
No. So how long have you been doing this for? Because I've been following, as I was saying before we turned the mics on, I've been following you for years.
I set up my account 7 years ago, just as a hobby. I was working for Thomas Cook, actually, for a very long time. And one of my friends, who happened to be one of the PR directors, we were sitting at a beautiful spa retreat. Honestly, we're having the loveliest day. And she said to me, "Why don't you start showing your outfits on Instagram?" And at that point, it was fairly new. And I said, "Oh, okay, well, I'm not quite sure." She said, "No, I really think you ought to." And so that's what I started to do. And I would only really post maybe once or twice a week. But through that, I found a really lovely community of ladies
that just instantly responded.
And I was looking at what they were doing, and they were, in return, they were looking at what I was doing. And to this day, I still see the same ladies. And most of them are London-based, some are North. But just really lovely. And I think that's the beauty of Instagram. And it's often talked about, you find your tribe.
Yeah.
But I will always be forever grateful for those ladies, because I really felt as if I'd found my tribe. And these are the ladies that will show up for me every single day.
Oh, wow.
I know.
So they welcomed you and they properly...
Yeah, and then I got to meet them in London and at North as well, and I got to meet them and got to know them. And, like I say, that was 7 years ago, and these people are still people that I will see every single day on Instagram. And it's... Yes, like I say, I am forever grateful for these ladies that show up for me every day. So that was 7 years ago, but it's become my job and my full-time job for about 2.5 years now.
Right.
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay. So if we track back 7 years then.
Okay.
So Thomas Cook. So does that... So
Thomas Cook.
And
so
then let's track way back then.
Way back.
So you finished uni, college, what?
I went to college and then didn't really sort of quite know what to do, but I'd always fancied some sort of like PR marketing side of things. And in the end, ended up got a job at Thomas Cook at Peterborough, the head office at Peterborough, and was there for a very long time. But I loved what I did, and I got to do because it's head office, I got to do quite a few things and work in different areas of the business. That was a really good grounding for me in terms of retailing and commercial.
And being exposed to lots of different...
Yeah, and also I got to travel, which, I have to say is my absolute passion.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever lost that travel bug, that travel sort of wanderlust.
Yeah.
I loved it and still love it. So that was Thomas Cook. And then I lost... I've got 3 siblings, so there's 4 of us, and we lost my dad really suddenly, and he died 15 years ago, and had a heart attack, and we lost him really suddenly. And for me, it was like a real sliding door moment. And my husband at the time, he was working, he did quite a bit of working overseas, and he was away for, weeks. And he said to me at that point, do you still want to work?
Yeah.
We'd got the children. I have 2 children, by the way. I have a daughter who's nearly 21, and I have a son who's nearly 18. And he said, so they were really tiny.
Yeah.
My son was 2, my daughter was 5. It was such a massive shock to us all. And I think, as a child, and what was I, 30-ish, and yet you're losing a parent, and it's sort of like you don't ever think that it's going to happen, but it did, and it happened really suddenly. So I stepped out of it and was just there for my mum, really. Just sort of had a year with my mum and did lots of things with her, and really to sort of try and get her through it. So we did lots of lovely things like garden clubs and days out, and it was just a really lovely time that I needed.
Gosh, how lovely.
Gosh, it never sort of like fails to.
I know.
I'll take a moment.
Take a moment.
So what happened next? So then I thought to myself, oh, okay, now I need to do something.
Yeah.
And
so just after a year or a couple of years? Or?
Yeah, it was. I think it was probably near sort of 2 years. And I thought I really would quite like to do something. I've always been interested in fashion. So I thought I'd actually quite like, and retail is what I know. So then I got a job at White Stuff in Stamford.
Oh, lovely.
And I worked there for a while. And that was really fun, really, really fun. Loved sort of styling ladies. I loved the whole merchandising side of it as well. I loved seeing what was coming in, the new seasons. But in the back of all of this, I was doing a little bit more on Instagram. So I was posting a little bit more.
Yeah.
And doing my own thing on there. And then in the meantime, my husband then set up his own company, which is sports nutrition. And I started doing a little bit for him.
Yeah.
And actually what I was doing is the influencer side of things. So the and doing the socials, the Instagram for the company. I was working for my husband's business, and I was doing that. And the advantage of that is that he was super flexible. So if I said, oh, I've got an event in London. And he would say, okay, when will you do the work? And I was like, right, I will get it, I will get it done. And for a while, there was a lot of juggling. So at this point, I'd left. I then took the decision to leave White Stuff because it was getting to that stage. Both my children are quite sporty, and of course, in retail, you have to work weekends.
Yes.
So I was, my husband was working in the week. I was doing whatever I was doing in the week, and then it got to the weekends, and he couldn't be in 2 places at once, and that's really important to us, to support the children. And so that was the decision. That was that decision made, and so I was doing that with him, and he was being really super flexible. And then it got quite big. The job got quite big. His business, was growing quite a bit, and which is absolutely amazing. And he said, we'd kind of like need you to do a bit more, a bit more. And this is where we're going with it, and da 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 da. And lockdown happened. I know we've been talking about this off speaker. And lockdown happened, and so many people that I've spoken to. I was at an event last night, and the founder of the business, she was talking about lockdown was a real pivotal moment for her, because she was a freelance beauty journalist, and that was it essentially. And so she had to really think again and think sort of outside the box. And so for a lot of us, it was a real moment. And so I went into lockdown, which was 2.5 years ago, I guess. And brands wanted to get the content out. We weren't going out.
Never been more important, had it?
The digital marketing was taking off, still taking off. And brands wanted to get their products out there. And I thought, okay, I really do need to make a decision.
Yeah.
We had the conversation, my husband and I had the conversation, and that was that, essentially. And he now has a whole team of, who do an absolutely amazing job.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's that side of things. But me, I started doing this about 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
As a full-time job.
It's tricky, isn't it? I think, because I've interviewed a couple of people so far that obviously lockdown and everything, particularly as small business owners, was just pretty catastrophic for them, and it was really hard. And I think obviously it was catastrophic in lots of ways for lots of people. But it's nice to hear actually a nice positive story from it, i.e., it was exactly the right time for you to kind of make that leap, because suddenly there was this demand for your brand, for your content, that maybe wouldn't have happened in that same way.
I genuinely don't think it would have done. And the other thing that happened for me is I predominantly was fashion and a little bit of home, although...
I love your home concept.
I know. And I really wish that I could do more. Yeah. But there's always been a slight part of me this is my job, and home life is home, and it's, and it's quite this sort of, family space, and this is personal space. And so I will try and do more. I think that's what I'd like to do, sort of moving forward. And so I thought to myself, okay, what else is it that I would want to do, or what else could I do? So I started doing a bit of beauty, and just showing kind of like my makeup looks. Now, I'm not a beauty person at all, in terms of, I don't know how comfortable I was with doing it to begin with. And I thought, well, actually, and I had this real mantra that I think to myself, okay, do it and then feel the fear later.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing? What's the worst thing that can happen? Exactly. Yeah. What is the worst thing that can happen? And for somebody that I guess is judged maybe every day on Instagram, because, I put myself out there, and it can be quite scary sometimes, and it's a really sort of scary place. But I thought, actually, I'd quite like to do this. I'm going to see how it goes. If it doesn't work, then okay, well, that's it, that's fine. And so I started doing that, and then actually now I find that I do a lot more. So since then, I would say that sort of maybe 50% of my work is fashion / beauty. Yeah, because
that's the thing, like you say, it's being really brave. Because you come on with no makeup, don't you? You literally are there kind of going...
But I think that's genuine, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's normal.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of part of being who we like makeup, and, but that's part of my hair. Honestly, my hair sometimes. I just sort of think, well, that's I like to think that I'm really normal.
Yeah.
I'm a really normal person. And so, that's why I do it. And this is a mantra that I've learned quite recently, actually, and it's a really important one. And control the controllable.
Yes.
And I always, and somebody told me that about 2 years ago, and honestly, I think it's absolutely so important to remember that sometimes, because I have situations where I'm slightly going from a tangent, and I apologise for that, but I have people that will message me and say no. So if I, for example, I put on a jumpsuit and say, oh, this is the link, to it if you want to, and I have ladies that will just say, literally, just no, or I've seen you in better, or
why on earth have you done this, kind of thing?
Yes, no, that doesn't suit you. Now, there's two schools of thought here.
Yeah.
They're being rude. They're being very rude, and, actually I've not asked for that.
Yeah.
However, these are ladies that perhaps have followed me for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm proud of the fact that they can approach me and say, I don't really like that on you. And that is a small snapshot of their day.
Yeah.
So they're looking through my stories, which are 15 seconds, or they're longer now, but they used to be 15 seconds. And that's a snapshot. And they're saying, no, Sally-Ann, just no.
Yeah. Tracking back then, so you had your ladies that supported you.
Yes.
Was there, in terms of, I guess, and I'm asking this with regards to if somebody else wanted to give this a go, like, I guess, any advice that they gave you or tips? How did you, I guess it's that physical...
It's that physical, how do I do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You started to take photos and stuff, but then how did you learn how to take photos? How did you learn?
Oh my gosh, literally practice, observing, practicing.
Looking at other Instagram that you like,
taking inspiration, and perhaps having like a mood board. Never feel afraid. I always think, people sometimes see a bigger account and they don't necessarily comment, or they don't necessarily have a conversation. And I think that sometimes, and what I find really funny is that people will have conversations in my comments.
Oh.
So they'll say, oh, this would look nice on you, and then tag the person.
Tag somebody, yeah.
And then the person will come back and say, she looks lovely. I don't know if I could carry that off.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, no, I'm here.
Yeah,
Involve me in the conversation. I want to be part of your conversation. You sound like you're having a really lovely conversation.
Yeah.
Please, can I join?
Obviously, women supporting women is obviously literally what this is all about. But I think getting really lovely but constructive feedback and that kind of thing, it can help shape so much.
I guess, and it is difficult, for my colleagues that do do the same job as me. It is sometimes difficult to, I think, give feedback because we are all on our own journey.
Yeah.
And we have to almost like own our own content. So that can be quite hard. However, somebody can ask me for advice.
Yes,
and I'll give,
someone comes to
you.
Yeah.
And I will give the best possible advice that I found works for me.
Yeah.
But it's loose advice because I think, like I say, we were all so different as women. We are all so individual and so different, and all of our content is so different that actually, you have to have your own journey, and what works for you on the algorithm possibly wouldn't work for me.
Yeah. It is just a mystery that the
algorithm
is.
Honestly, I could go on about this blooming algorithm, but anyway, we won't do that. We won't do that today.
I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength left. I know you have a little life in you yet.
So what do you think? So we've talked about sort of your background and kind of how you've come to where you are. So one of my key questions, because I want people to get a feel for whether they can see themselves doing it.
That's really exciting. Yeah.
So what is it about you? I think either a life learned skill or just an inherent skill you have that makes you good at this. And I guess a lot of that I'm kind of saying, like literally creating beautiful content. What is it that's
okay?
I mean, have you always were you obviously I'm going to assume, but shoot me down if that you were always into your clothes, even as a young whippersnapper.
I think I was. I mean, I have 3 siblings, 1 sister, 2 brothers, youngest of 4, which some say explains a lot about my personality. I don't know. But so I was quite a tomboy when I was younger, quite a tomboy. And I think I probably didn't really get into clothes until I started work, until I'd got that income to sort of be able to do that. But I've always been interested in fashion, and I've always been interested in style. And I think that helps. I just see the beauty in in things. So the light or nature or buildings. I think it's just I sort of like see probably
you have a natural eye for it.
A light for and I don't, but it's all subjective anyway, isn't it? Because what I consider to be beautiful might not be beautiful to somebody else.
Yeah, very true. And what about photography?
Have you
ever been into photography? So that very much has come later, has it?
That's come later, yeah. And I just bought my camera, started to shoot, and just play around with it. And that's the beauty of digital cameras, I guess, isn't it? Because you can just delete.
Yeah.
You delete. Honestly, my phone has so many photos in it.
So a tomboy when you were younger then?
Yes.
Do you think in itself, though, that is an element of you wanting to just sort of not tread the path of maybe everyone else? Is that a little bit of kind of almost...
Well, no, because I didn't really fall into what I'm doing until much, much later on. So, working at Thomas Cook.
Yeah.
That wasn't about fashion. That was about seeing the world and seeing these beautiful destinations and, learning about the different places, and that was all about that. But I guess that stems from, wanting to sort of see beautiful things.
Yeah.
And then really fashion, maybe, I don't know.
Well, you've almost indicated that it was literally people saying to you,
Yes, so my,
You know,
so my
actually,
friend said, you know,
you're great,
Put
so,
photo,
yeah.
put your outfits on, and yeah, that's kind of how it started, really. My mum was a seamstress.
Oh.
So in terms of fashion, and you were saying about
Yes.
being a tomboy, and you were saying about that, and that was one thing that I just wanted to. It suddenly came to me.
So you were literally grew up around fabric.
So, yes,
and,
fabrics.
Yeah.
And, you know, and she made a lot of our clothes. And you know, going to a school disco, I'd say, "Oh, Mum, I've seen this lime green skirt, you know, short skirt. I really fancy." And she's like, "Okay, when's the disco? Oh, it's tomorrow night." You know, and she'd be there, you know, stitching and staying up and stitching this skirt for me. And I, you know, felt the bee's knees in this lime green. I was telling my children about this the other day. I felt the bee's knees in this lime green skirt that I wore to school disco. So I was
And
always
it was custom.
Yes, you know, so I was always. She would always say to me, you know, something has to fit you properly.
Yeah. Ah.
So, you know, in my head, I've always had that tailoring
Yes.
background, and now I don't think there's anything more beautiful than a tailored item of clothing. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
it's just the dream. It
Yeah,
really
yeah.
is. You know, just to see it. And
Is there anything about your personality or your character that conflicts with what you're doing right now?
Ooh,
or if it's a bit of
okay.
a challenge? And I guess I was going to, you know, sort of say, like, you were talking about a lot of, you know, maybe like you were saying, the inability to just sort of shoot and go kind of thing. You know, you want to obviously...
I do, yes, I do. That is a really good point. So I will, yes, everything. I like to do a really good job.
Yeah.
I that gives me satisfaction. So in some respects, it's, you know, it can be a curse and a blessing, because I would always want to do a good job, whether that's my own work or whether I'm working with a brand and working
Yeah.
for a brand. I will always want to do the very best that I can do. And so if something doesn't go quite right, I do get really frustrated, but I will keep at it until it is right, or until I'm happy with it.
And
yes.
do you plan a lot? Do you...
I have a routine to my day, so I will shoot content in the morning or film in the mornings, and then in the afternoons I'm usually at my desk until sort of probably from the afternoon, so 2 o'clock to about 6 o'clock, and I will be at my desk, yeah, and that will be editing or researching or, you know, catching up with the community, you know, and that sort of thing, and
responding to requests.
and then finish. It's family time, sort the supper out or whatever, and then I'll probably go on again in the evening.
Yeah.
But that way, I generally tend to think of that as my social time.
Yeah.
You know, because the children will probably be on theirs if they're at home.
Yeah. So you've referenced doing your own editing then, because that was one of my personal questions for
Uh-huh.
you, was like, because they are always, particularly your videos, are really well shot and edited.
Thank
so where did you learn to edit?
Again, it was self-taught.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of in the bin, delete. And now I think that it's just second nature to me. And I found a really easy app. And I just edit on there. And sometimes, not to talk too technical about Instagram, but at the moment the algorithm favours you to edit in Reels. And I'm not great at doing that. I'm a bit of a technical dinosaur. So
I know what you're saying.
technology, thank you, dinosaur. So I'm getting my head around that. But there's always learning. I think that's a good thing, because I'm always having to be challenged. I'm always having to learn new things. And sometimes I can get in a right old tizzy with it.
Okay, so what is the absolute best part of doing this?
Oh,
Or a couple of best parts? What
well,
do you get the most joy from?
Okay,
What do
well,
you-
certainly the people,
Yeah.
because I love meeting people. So, for example, last night was really different for me, because not really different, but it was an event. It was Organic Beauty, and there's so much crossover between wellness, organic beauty, well, you know, wellness, beauty, and fashion. There's so much crossover. So in this room, there were all sorts of different women from all walks of life. And the brands that I spoke to, they'd all had really different varied backgrounds as well.
Oh, okay.
And so I just really enjoy meeting people and hearing about people and hearing what is their background, how did they come to do this. And this was an industry that wasn't even heard of 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, how incredible is that? That's absolutely brilliant, because there are jobs for our children that haven't yet existed.
Yeah.
That don't yet exist. So I think it's brilliant if you can. I don't know. I find the whole thing amazing for women of our age that just put you in my category. Then I apologise for that. But but for us that can do something like this, I never thought I'd be doing this. 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Never in a million years.
Okay, flip side of that, what's...
The hours. I mean, we touched on it slightly.
Went
Sorry, there was no hesitation there, was there? Yeah, the hours, I
Yeah.
think. Because it's like a job like no other.
Yeah.
It really is. And, you have to question yourself. And for me, that pivotal moment was when I thought, okay, this is going to be my job, and therefore I have to treat it like a job.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's really hard. So if we go away as a family, there's always that question, will you be working, Mum? Will you be working? And there is always that question, because it isn't just something that I can put up a photo and ignore.
Yeah.
Because I can't do that, because there will inevitably be that conversation, or there'll be those questions.
Yeah.
So
I guess even brands might have questions why you can't turn around if
exactly.
someone's
And,
giving you product
I remember
or...
heading off to Ibiza, and I'd got a campaign to shoot, and and so that there was a bit of negotiation with my family in all of that.
What about, I've got to ask you the strange, weird question. What's the weirdest thing that's happened to you doing this? Is it an event, a product, a request, a comment? What's the strangest
a lot
thing?
of people, weirdly, think my name is Ruth. So they refer to me as Ruth. And that's because my Instagram handle is Rutland Girl. So I think they just see it, that R-U-T. I don't know why.
Oh my gosh.
But that's a really common thing. People call me Ruth.
you just chat to
And
them
I
as
just
Ruth.
reply back, say only at the weekends.
What's next? Where do you go from here?
Oh gosh, Paris on Friday, but
Paris on Friday.
I don't know, actually. Who knows? And I think that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Because you don't know what's around the corner. I'd like to travel a bit more with Instagram, and put a part of that. And I'd love to do a bit more of that. That would be the dream, because I just love traveling. There's so many places I haven't been to.
Yeah.
There's so many things I want to do still.
And now your kids are older, you've obviously
yeah. So there's that, but there is an element that is work. So again, bit of downtime, bit of work. So I'd like to do a bit more travelling, home content. We talked about home content. I mean, maybe that's something that perhaps I could do.
Just to sort of touch on money, I guess, in terms of just for someone to get an idea of whether or not you can kind of, I guess, how much of a living you can make from this. Obviously it is hard. I think everyone can watch that, and obviously compared to the amount of time you're putting in, I think the sort of that cost analysis must be a difficult one to make.
Absolutely.
And obviously we all know that there's people just earning millions.
Oh my gosh, I always read about these people.
There's brands that will gift you product, and then there's obviously the brands that will pay you for content.
Yep.
And I guess, can you give us, or give the listener any idea of kind of what that could look like, or...
Okay, so the gifted work will be something that they will say, so either a small brand or bigger brands actually as well, but they will say, can we, we'd love to send you this bag, or we'd love to send you this, and no obligation to post.
Okay, yeah.
There is...
Yes.
We do this for a job. So there is a slight expectation that they will want something in return. But some of them are very sweet and say, no obligation to post. And that's a gift. That's the gifted side of things. I generally tend not to do too many gifted these days, because it's my job. So therefore, the time to create that content for a gifted post is time that I could be doing on a paid post.
Yeah, exactly.
So that all has to be taken into consideration.
And it's what you're saying, knowing your value.
And it is absolutely knowing my value. So what they're getting out of me is they're getting a videographer or photographer.
Yeah.
They're getting studio space. They're getting a model, and they're getting a stylist. Essentially, that's what they're getting for a bag that they want to send me.
Yeah.
Now, you know, like I said, small brands starting out, I completely and utterly understand that. I do. But like I said, you know, there are some bigger brands that will want to do that, but yet, you know, they are working with videographers, they're working with, and so there is still that. I think there's a long way to go with that.
Yeah.
There's a long way to go with that. You know your worth. So, for example, when I first started it, I was taking time off, or I was time away from a business, from a job that I was getting paid for. So to work for that brand, that has to pay me at least equal.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why would I do it?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and there was, yes and no. You know, we call it loss leaders. You know, there's bits that, you know, I thought, okay, I'm not going to get paid for this. However, this is a brand that I'd really like to work with, and I'd really like to work for. So if I do a good job, then potentially they could see that.
Yeah.
And there has been moments where, you know, you do so much for that brand, and you have to have that conversation in the end and say, actually, you know, I'm really trying to, you know, work with a small number of brands, and I'd like this to become my job.
Yeah.
You know, we need to have a conversation now about numeration, because that this is now becoming my job, and that's quite hard.
Is it?
Yeah, that's quite hard, because you just have to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath and hit send on that email, because you know that and I think,
and is there a
I think that brands respect that.
Yeah.
You know, and they are seeing the value of it more and more.
Yeah. Well, they have to.
Is there a rate card?
Yeah.
No, because, and again, in our industry, it's not often talked about how much we get paid, how much we earn a post.
Yeah.
You know, we don't, and there's a good reason for that. Sometimes it can be quite hard, particularly if people are starting out and they don't know really how much to charge, or, you know, it's a bit of a minefield and all that sort of thing. And it is really hard. However, it's so variable.
I was going to say, people charge.
Yeah, and what I mean by
things.
that is, you know, it's my audience, my content, how many views I get is totally different to what somebody else is getting. And I will also say to people, okay, are you creating content for that brand, or are you selling for that brand, or are you doing both?
Yeah.
So the influencer side of things is that you'll sell something, and they want hits on the website, they want to sell that product.
Return.
The other side of it is that the brand wants a beautiful image that they can repost on their feed, and they've not had to buy the studio, book the model, pay the photographer, you know, book the videographer. So which one is it? And that is really important to recognise that in the onset, because you've got two very different variables there.
And you can sort of cost it up accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, last couple of questions then. What advice would you give yourself 2.5 years ago or 7 years ago? Is there any advice that you'd give your starting out self in this, to kind of do things a little bit differently, or to be a bit cleverer on?
Gosh, it's a really hard one, isn't it?
I know.
It's a really hard one. Perhaps.
Well, I guess it's that kind of question for someone starting out. So someone's going, okay, maybe I've had a bit of a hobby channel or something like this. Okay, maybe I do want to take the next step.
I just think to do it. And I'm trying to think, really, would I have started it earlier? We've talked about this before, earlier on. Would I have done it earlier? I wasn't really in a position to do it earlier, because life has a funny way of throwing you these curveballs. So I wasn't really in the right place to do that at the right time. But I think there was a bit of me that wishes that this had come along slightly earlier.
Yeah.
Because I think I would have picked up even more skills, and I think I would have picked up, I don't know.
So maybe...
But then that feels like I'm being really critical of myself, and actually...
Well, no, I mean, I guess the positive is obviously what you've kept saying here. If you turn that into a positive, maybe the bit of advice there is to say to people, you know, recognise when it is your time. You know, recognise the opportunity when it's...
Absolutely.
If you've got a gut feeling that you should be doing it now, Because like you say, sometimes timing is just not right.
The timing is just not right.
It just wasn't right for you before.
No, absolutely.
So it's just recognise it and jump on it, maybe, if you have got that kind of...
Yeah, and look back at every single experience and think, well, actually, what did I learn from that?
Yeah.
You know, what did I get out of that, and what did I learn from that, and what would I do differently?
The final question, which I'm going to ask everybody, is just to give a piece of life. But I think you've already given loads.
I've given loads. I love my little sayings.
I know,
and I love
life
my
advice,
little.
but it might not have anything to do with what you do, but a bit of life advice to just leave out there in the world.
Control the controllable. That's
Yeah.
my one. Yeah, we've talked about earlier, but control the controllable, and that can be in any walk of life, anything you do, or because you can only control what you control.
Yeah.
You can't control anybody else. You can't control what they're doing, what they're saying, you know, how they're behaving, but you can control how you are.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
Oh,
Sylvia.
yeah, it's been absolutely lovely. I feel like we've really covered most things and had a really lovely chat. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks. If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some behind the scenes pics and some personal profile pics, plus read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go and support us on Patreon. The link is on this podcast page and across all of our socials. Sincere thanks in advance.